I would like to reach out my hand, oh, myself, oh, me tell you to run. All right, welcome to this week's version of the videocast. I'm here alongside the standard people. We have Marty L. Say hi.
4-3, ups and downs.
Marty L. won this week. He's 4-3. Now he is tied with in record with myself and Jeremy. And then here's Jeremy. Go ahead.
I'm 5-2. Please don't mistake me for being tied with you guys.
All right, of course not. And then coming up with his first win of the season, Matt Wilson.
Giddy up. Giddy up.
Chances you win out and win the league.
At least 1%.
At least 1%.
1%.
Okay. All right. So, well, it's good that the league or the group here has bounced back a little bit. You know, we've all gotten wins recently, especially Marty L on a little win streak here. So let's see. Who are you playing this week, Marty L? Do you know?
Smalls.
Oh, you got to take him down.
He's going to start 3 quarterbacks against me, probably.
Yeah, good value. He has good value in all 3 of those quarterbacks sitting on his bench. Anyway, so let's get right into it. I wanted to talk first, right out of the gates, about one Percy Harvin. So this is a guy I've loved in the past, and he was on Jeremy's second favorite team, the Seahawks, and now he is on the
Jets. Yeah, man, I'm pumped. We have a real weapon, an actual threat for a touchdown. This is like the first guy the Jets have had in forever.
All right, and how do you see Percy Harvin as a fantasy asset moving forward, knowing that the Jets are a run-first team and that they have a dysfunctional quarterback and a pretty much dysfunctional offense overall, and it's pretty much where fantasy players go to die?
Yeah, can't really argue any of that. I mean, he's going to run back kicks and punts, I would imagine, so we can say goodbye to Walter Powell. And I don't know. I mean, he's going to be a starting wide receiver. I don't know how.
But seriously, like, let's say in like a 12-team PPR league, Percy Harvin. Do you put him as a flex option, or is he more of a wide receiver too, or is he kind of somebody that you don't want to start unless you have to? We'll start with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd say he's like a wide receiver 3 flex. I mean, he's got all the upside in the world. They don't throw the ball that much. They're going to use him as a deep threat, I would imagine, because they never have had one. So I think it's going to open things up more for Decker, if anything. I think it'll make Decker and Amaro more valuable in fantasy leagues going forward.
All right, Wilson, what do you think about the situation with Percy Harvin?
I've actually found myself as a Percy Harvin owner this year, so it certainly can't be worse than it's been. Between getting 3 touchdowns called back in one game, or just like 3 catches for no yards or something like that. Like they've got to find a way to use him better than they were using him in Seattle. I've never been a huge fan, just from fantasy standpoint, but I think to justify the trade, they're going to force feed him the ball.
Marty L, what do you think?
I mean, I agree with Wilson. I think they're going to force feed the ball largely because Rex Ryan's job's on the line, if not already obviously gone. But they got him for a steal. When the trade first got announced, I was wondering what the hell Seattle was doing. But the more that got leaked out there, I mean, I think Seattle did the right thing by cutting him loose, and I think he may be a one and done with the Jets because they can cut his contract out this year with no money on the line. So.
All right, great. Well, I mean, I think Percy Harvin myself. I don't think he's someone I'd like to rely on. I think he obviously has the ability to break a couple runs, but on the Jets, unless you have like basically Chris Ivory, I'm all set. So let's move on to Trey Mason and the St. Louis Rams situation. I think Martial, you wanted to touch on Zach Stacy and where he went, and then maybe talk about Trey Mason and what he's done.
In the ESPN league. Yeah, I own him in the ESPN league. I mean, he's obviously been a huge disappointment this year. I feel like he had so much promise, obviously, after last year. but even before the season, they were saying Benny Cunningham, and now Trey Mason went out and had a monster week last week. I can't see how they obviously give Zach Stacy the ball anymore. Although Fisher said, he went from having 1 or 0 touches last week. That Fisher said he could have 25 touches this week, which I'm sure he's just telling us to do some game planning, some trickery here. But I mean, it's obviously a huge disappointment. But I would ride Trey Mason. I mean, they had a nice win last week, even though it was kind of some fluky plays. But I mean, he looked good. And he looked good the game before too when he got a few touches.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pulling up Trey Mason's schedule right now because I actually, in the league that we play in, I bid on him last week and I got him, so I kind of got a little bit lucky there. But upcoming on Trey Mason's schedule, I love the guy, but he has at KC, at San Francisco, at Arizona, home against Denver, at San Diego. So, excuse me, he has a tough slate coming up. Wilson, what do you think about Trey Mason moving forward? Is he going to just be basically what Zach Stacy was last year, which is a back-end RB1, or what do you think?
I think he has that kind of upside, but I certainly wouldn't count on him for that. I don't think anyone's really counting on him for that at this point. But that tough schedule, anyone in the NFC West, all those defenses are pretty tough, so you really don't want to have to rely on a true running game. If they're not catching passes, it's tough to trust them. I do like Trey Mason. I saw a little bit of his running this past weekend, as well as what he did in college, and he just looks far more talented than Stacy or Cunningham. And ultimately, if you're a talented guy, sometimes that works out. Last time we did a podcast, we talked a little bit about Jerick McKinnon, and I said talent's going to win out there, and he's kind of turned it on the last few weeks. Trey Mason has that same type of upside.
Great. As far as Jeremy, you said you have a situation in the league where you're trying to pick up a bunch of running backs. Obviously, you don't want to tell us your exact bid. We do a free agent acquisition budget, which means you bid a certain amount of dollars on a player, and they're blind bids. So whoever has the highest bid wins the player. So besides Trey Mason, what other running backs are you targeting in our 14-team half-point PPR league out there right now? I'm sorry, Trey Mason's not available. What running backs out there are you targeting?
Well, there's the 2 guys on the Bills, Bryce Brown, who I actually drafted but had to cut when he was being inactive every week, and Anthony Dixon. Even though I don't really see either of them having a big week against the Jets' run defense this week, but in my situation, I need it with Gore out. And then there's Traveris Cadet because PT Cruiser got hurt, so Cadet could be good in PPR formats.
Yep. What do you think, Martial?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, not that I'm bidding on any of these guys, so I don't want to tip my hat, but I'm all for PT Cruiser getting healthy because he's an Illini, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I don't like. I call him PT Loser because I hate the guy. So anyway, Wilson.
I say let's keep getting Pierre Thomas out of there because Mark Ingram's back and I need him. Run the table in the league. Let's go.
Nice. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to Sean, a pinch better in the Dirty D. He actually picked up Trey Mason last week, so he's not available on waivers this week. So some people in the Dirty D grow up. What can I say? Anyway, we'll move on. We'll go to Calvin Johnson and Megatron and basically the Lions offense. I own Reggie Bush. He got hurt last week. He says he's playing this week. They're going to London. Who the hell knows? He kind of sucks anyways. Joique Bell looks good. But the big story here, obviously, is Calvin Johnson out still. Matt Stafford obviously suffers because of that. This week they're playing in London. Then they have next week off. I think the smart money is on Calvin sitting out this week and then resting the next 2 weeks and trying to be 100% the next week after that. What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, no, I think Calvin should just should sit out. I don't know. He's not going to do much if he's out there. He's just been a decoy whenever he's been active. So I think it's best for the Lions to just sit him out, get him healthy in the next 2 weeks, and then have him come back strong because it looks like the Lions are going to be contending for a playoff spot the way their defense is playing.
If you own him, do you play him if he's active?
I think you have to, just with the upside. Same deal with Jimmy Graham last week. You knew he was active.
Again? 0 points. He got 0 points. Calvin Johnson, he's been active and he's gotten donuts and 2 points. And you're telling people to start him out there? You feel comfortable with that?
It's tough, but I mean, if you don't want to be the guy who sat Calvin Johnson or Jimmy Graham when they go off for 8 catches for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns, because that's how good they are.
And you think you think he's capable of doing that this weekend?
Yes, because the Falcons are terrible.
Okay. All right, Wilson, what do you think about the whole Lions situation, specifically Calvin Johnson and his trade value, I guess?
Well, first, I completely agree with Jeremy in the sense if you've got Calvin Johnson, if he's active, you've got to play him. Unless your team is ridiculously loaded and you have options that are like true number 1 receivers. Like, you'd have to have, like, Demarius and Julius Jones and Dez Bryant to say, yeah, I don't need Calvin this week. But
Wait, I have a question. Who is Julius Jones? Because I missed
Julius
him.
Jones, running back. Let's go.
I missed him in the draft. I don't know who that is.
Thomas Jones' brother.
Okay. All right.
Julius Jones, man. Bring him back.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so Julius Jones, stud receiver. I don't know who Julio Jones is. But, yeah. So unless you've got Julius Jones, you got to play Calvin Johnson. But for Calvin, if you're in any sort of keeper league, go get him right now. He'll never be cheaper than he is right now. Someone might underestimate the value, but you've got to get him now. Matt's gone.
All right. Well, I mean, when you say in keeper leagues, what about in redraft leagues? We talked about this afternoon. I don't know if Paul watches the video cast, but Paul has Megatron. He is now 2-5. Luckily, he's only 1 win out of 6th place right now, so he definitely still has a chance. Does he consider trading Megatron, and if so, how much value should he get for him, or someone who's trading for Megatron? I think I discussed, like I said, I would trade Julio Jones for him, or I would trade away Julio Jones to get Megatron. Is that something smart, or is it not something smart to do?
More importantly, would you trade Julius Jones for him?
I told you I don't know Julius Jones.
So, yeah, I mean, if you can get a good value for him in the redraft league, especially if you need wins now, it's a good time to move him and try to make it happen. Because if you're planning, and I think you have to, on the next 2 weeks being without him, that's a tough hole to fill. So you go get him if you've got depth, but if you need that depth, trade him, make it happen. Worry about the pieces later.
Yeah, but see, the thing is for example, Paul on his team, he doesn't necessarily need Megatron right now. Like, he literally kind of almost has him on his bench. Like, the rest of his receivers isn't good, and he kind of doesn't need a running back this week. But his other wide receivers, he has Alshon Jeffrey, who obviously only had 2 catches for 9 points and kind of screwed people over this week. But he also has Larry Fitzgerald, I know, who's not a great player. I'm pulling up his team. He has Mike Wallace. But basically, he doesn't really need Calvin Johnson right now. I mean, he does need points and he does need to win. But if I offer him something like, Julio Jones for Calvin Johnson and, something else maybe to even it out a little bit, that's a no-brainer for him, is it not? Because I would think that on his end, getting Julio Jones could easily outperform Megatron the rest of the season, especially going to obviously outperform the rest of 2 weeks. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer for him, but I'm wondering if I should take that risk. And it's a true thing. I don't really know if I should offer him or not.
Yeah,
Marty? I want to hear Marty. I'll talk about it.
Well, when he comes back, I don't know where he went.
Oh, shit. Where'd he go?
Hey, real quick, I'm gonna blow your guys' mind right now. So you guys probably assume that Julius Thomas is the #1 tight end in PPR league.
No, he's not. I know. Shut the.
Oh, it's Greg Olsen. It's Greg Olsen by 9 points.
Julius Thomas had a bye.
Greg Olsen, stud.
Marty L.
Yo, sorry, I had to let Becky in.
Why?
Hi, Becky.
Just say hi.
Hi.
She says hi.
Does she want to say hi to the camera?
No.
She almost walked in.
I saw her. She just walked into the screen.
About face.
I like the coat.
So you want my Calvin, since my computer was messing up earlier, Calvin take?
Well,
think-
I want your Calvin take, but specifically, I want it on my situation where I have Julio Jones, and I'm thinking about trading him for Calvin Johnson, kind of as the base of the deal. Do you think that's something smart that I should do if I can upgrade a little bit somewhere else, or what do you think?
So are you getting Greg Olson?
Yeah. So I mean, the specific thing I'm thinking about would be trading away Julio Jones and Delaney Walker,
Yeah.
getting back Greg Olson and Megatron. So the kid I'm getting it back from is 2-5, and I'm 7-0.
Yeah, I mean, I would make the move if Calvin's healthy. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer because Greg Olson's a machine.
Right. So do you? I mean, I guess Greg Olson is obviously kind of like an extra bonus for me to do it, but like, wouldn't you be worried about trading away Julio Jones for someone who hasn't really done anything except for week 1?
I mean, sometimes you got to take the chance. So, I mean, I think it's worth a shot. I personally, I think they should leave him at home this week. No need. I mean, they're gonna roll.
He's there. He's already there, I guess. He's already landed.
No, I was gonna say, well, send him home, and they're gonna roll Atlanta without him, and then let him get healthy for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking about the trade. We'll see what happens. He could definitely use it, but I mean, I think we'll see. Anyway, we'll move on to some other stuff here. Let's go to a new feature of ours, the milk carton guys. I don't think we got to it last week. It's those are guys who have gone missing. I think last time Jeremy was going to do Pierre Garcon, but since then he hasn't gone missing. He's been found. He's had a couple good weeks. And Jeremy, you wanted to talk about the keeper that you had in our league. It was a 14th round, correct, I think, or something like that, 14th round keeper. So, I mean, it really wasn't a risk to keep him. But
Right.
Who was it that you kept, and what's your issue with these people?
Seattle defense, #1 defense in the league, right? Wrong, because they suck. They had -3 points this past week against St. Louis. They had -2 points in week 2 against San Diego. They've only had more than 10 points one time. It was last week against Dallas, and they suck too. They still give up 30 points. So, I don't know. They suck.
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you, man. I picked up Detroit defense in a couple leagues, and it looks like they're probably kind of be like rising to the top of like the defensive ranks for fantasy. They already played Green Bay this week. I played them against New Orleans. They did okay. It just makes me think that against the elite teams, you can still start them and get a little bit, but whenever they play a crappy team, they're just going to get a ton of points. So I think anybody out there who can grab the Detroit defense and roll with them, that's probably a good idea. Is that Wilson? Do you have anything to say about defenses in general, or Seattle defense?
Yeah, Seattle defense has definitely been disappointing, but I mean they're missing a couple pieces. I mean they lost Browner in the offseason. I can't remember. I know they lost Chris Clemens and a couple of the other D linemen in there, and it's just not quite the same defense. They change year to year, and I like the Lions defense right now. Somehow the Eagles have the top-rated defense out there, and you can't tell year to year. I never go in hard for a defense. It's just too unreliable.
Well said, my friend. As far as my milk carton person, I wanted to talk about Matt Asiata. Wilson kind of touched upon it, but essentially he's lost his job to Jerick McKinnon. I own Matt Asiata in a standard league. I own Jerick McKinnon in a PPR league. Obviously, McKinnon looks like he's the real deal. I think he had over 100 yards rushing the other day on not that many carries. I think it was like a dozen carries or so. But Matt Asiata, actually, you know what? I dropped him. I actually dropped Matt Asiata because I truly think that he's basically going to be someone you can't rely on whatsoever unless McKinnon obviously gets hurt. So do you guys own McKinnon or Asiata anywhere? We'll start with Jeremy and his cat.
Yeah, I have Asiata in that league with Ed. I also have him and Stacy, so it's pretty brutal. But I'm just benching him. Maybe he comes back to life one day, but I don't need him.
Jeremy, your cat is licking the flying squirrel trophy.
She is. That's correct. Jeets, welcome to the podcast.
I don't know if I want to win that thing again anymore. Not again.
Again.
Again, you've never even made the playoffs, bro.
I didn't mean to say it.
Playoffs?
Yeah. to clarify to our audience, yeah, my team's never made the playoffs, 6 and 7 both years, second most points like both years, but just bad luck. Anyway, Wilson, you want to talk more about McKinnon, or did you get your little blurb in?
Yeah, I like him. That's about it.
Wilson, Martial. Martial's busy. All right. As far as Wilson, who's your milk carton guy?
My milk carton guy, we're sticking with the Vikings, and we're going to Cordero Patterson. Honestly, he's one of these kind of misleading guys. He seems like a milk carton guy on like what's he doing, but he's never been anything that we really thought he was. He actually only has 2 career games over 60 yards receiving. So all those people who like got caught up in the North Turner hype and that he was going to somehow become the new Josh Gordon.
Adam Beckfold.
Like, and I liked him. Don't get me wrong, but you look at some of these numbers and you see he doesn't put up the numbers. He's more dangerous as a kick returner guy. I mean, maybe he's destined to be Devin Hester. Who knows?
Percy Harvin. Who would you rather have the rest of the way? Is it Cordell Patterson or Percy Harvin? Who would you rather have?
It's true. It's a toss-up, but I'm going Harvin over Patterson because Patterson just seems to be a fluke. He's actually an idiot, too. Like, his Wonderlic, he scored an 11. Now, we know Josh Gordon's no genius, and he scored a 24.
All right,
So,
relax about Josh Gordon, man. There's guys that score 5s and 6s, and my boy Josh Gordon scores in the mid-20s, and you're giving him crap. He's selling cars, pushing cars while he's serving a suspension like a good boy. Come on now.
Where's he at right now? What's he doing?
Right this second,
Right this second.
I think you know what he's
Probably
doing.
not good.
I think you know what he's doing. He's studying the playbook.
That's it. He's and Johnny Football hanging out together.
Definitely. All right, Martial, who's your milk carton people?
So I want to talk a little bit about the Bears in general, more so the offense. So I was at the game this weekend against the Dolphins. So hate's kind of twofold. I mean, the defense was just flat out terrible. Ryan Tannehill started the game with 14 consecutive completions. I mean, how does that happen? Ryan Tannehill is awful. So that's thing number one. But the Bears' offense, Jay Cutler threw another egg. Brandon Marshall is calling out everybody, including Robbie Gould. I mean, it's just a disaster. 3 and 4. Quite honestly, they need to watch out because Trestman, quite honestly, could lose his job after this year. If they lay an egg the rest of the season, Trestman's gone. He has to be. They have too much talent. In reality, it's largely Jay Cutler's fault. I mean, it's a disaster in Chicago right now. People are ready to jump off bridges into the dirty Chicago River.
All right, well, I want to go to Wilson to talk about the Bears. But first, I want to propose this. What about Trestman gets fired from the Bears, and then the QB whisperer himself goes to the Jets, and he teaches the self-proclaimed top 5 NFL QB, Geno Smith? Jeremy.
I mean, yeah, I'm in. I'm all in for that. Except that's not ever going to happen. Like, let's be real. I mean, I could get Trestman, but Geno.
All right, go ahead, Wilson.
Just in regards to the Bears, it's frustrating. I mean, I love Brandon Marshall, and Brandon Marshall's ready to go crazy again, bringing out that multiple personality bit, and he's calling out his kicker. That's where he's at right now. He is calling out his kicker. So you know there's struggles when that's going on in Chicago, and it's insane to me that offense isn't clicking at a higher level. They're way too talented, but better for the Packers.
All right. So I just want to play a little game of Would You Rather. And this is going to be for the rest of the season in our half-point PPR league. I'm going to start with Jeremy. I'm going to say rest of season, would you rather Giovanni Bernard or Marshawn Lynch?
Bernard. I'm a Bernard guy. Yeah, and I'm a Lynch guy too, but I think Bernard.
Oh, I'm surprised. Martial?
Looks like he's in my A.
All right, Wilson?
Because that NFC West is tough, I think I'm going to stick with Bernard as well, though I like the fact that Lynch is catching some passes this year.
Okay, I like that. All right, Jeremy, Matt Forte or Le'Veon Bell?
Forte, not close.
Wilson?
I know Bell's a stud. I know maybe it is close, but not really in my mind. I think Forte is the most consistent running back in the NFL for fantasy purposes.
Wilson, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'd say Forte too.
Yeah, Forte's 19 points ahead of him. So I mean, if you average that out, it's about just over 2 points a week. I think it's close. I'd probably take Forte as well. Bell's a stud, though. I love Bell. All right, rest of the season, Forte or Murray? Jeremy.
Forte. I feel like eventually Murray's going to break down, and they're going to lighten his load. Forte won't.
Wilson.
I actually agree with that. I'd take Forte. I think I might even take Bell over Murray the rest of the way. I just think the workload's too heavy and Murray gets hurt too often. The history's there.
Okay. All right. So what do we think about Alfred Morris or Shane Vereen? Jeremy.
I think I offered that trade in some capacity to Big Red at one point.
100%.
But I don't know. If I can base it off of last week and what the Pats are going to do with Vereen, I'd rather Vereen.
Wilson, what do you think?
Just because we've agreed on everything so far, I'm going to say Morris. He's been a little more involved, and I really don't think Colt McCoy is going to last as their QB. RG3 will get back in there, and hopefully it'll open things up a little bit.
Okay. Now it's James Starks. Wilson, what's his injury situation? He got injured, correct?
Yeah, the Packers didn't really clarify anything after the game, and truthfully, I haven't checked the updates in the last couple days. But he is a little banged up. Supposedly, he could have gone back in afterwards, but they just didn't need him at that point. So I don't think that's really a concern. If you're a Starks owner, he is still getting carries, even though Lacey looked a little better again this week. But Starks is still probably that top handcuff to have in the league.
You like Starks better than Niles Davis as a handcuff?
I think I do. I don't know why, other than Packer bias, but I just think Starks is actually a little more talented than people gave him credit for. He fell off after a ton of hype after their Super Bowl run, but I think he's really a pretty good runner.
When Lacey went down last year, didn't Starks fill in pretty admirably?
Yeah, Starks' yards per carry was over 5 last year.
Okay, all right. So yeah, I think maybe Niles Davis is probably a little bit more proven, so maybe he's a little bit more valuable. But I think they're both, basically top 10 running backs essentially in fantasy if the other guy goes down because they're going to get all the carries. So they're both very valuable to own. All right, let's go to wide receiver. Would you rather the rest of the season? Do you guys know what time we're at?
It's almost a half hour, I think.
All right, so we'll go for a couple more minutes there, and then we'll stop. All right, Jeremy, would you rather rest of the season Demaryius Thomas or Antonio Brown?
That's a good one. I think Antonio Brown.
Okay, Wilson.
I'll go Demaryius Thomas. The guy has almost screwed me twice now. When I play against him, he blows up for at least 30 points.
Well, yeah, he can't play you every week, so.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I'm taking Thomas all day with that as well. Let's see here. Rest of season. This is a good one. Randall Cobb or Dez Bryant. This is the guys I basically traded for last week in a different league. Randall Cobb had another big game, so did Dez Bryant. Jeremy, what do you think?
I think I'd
Randall Cobb is currently 8 points ahead of Dez Bryant. And the Cowboys have their bye? No, so neither team's had their bye yet. So he's 8 points ahead of him right now.
I think I'd go Dez. I like Cobb, but there's more weapons around Cobb to go to as opposed to Dez. Witten hasn't really done much. They stopped running with Murray into the ground. It's just T. Will, and that's it.
Yep. Wilson?
I'd go Dez all day. If I was in the position to trade Cobb for Dez and someone offered that straight up, I'd do that any day. I think Dez is arguably the best receiver in the NFL. And right now, with the way that running game is working, and I know we just got through talking about how it might fall apart, but you can't focus on Dez, and he's looked really good. Cobb's stats are touchdown based right now, and Dez can only score 4 touchdowns going forward. He hasn't been that much of a force yet.
Yeah. Would you say that Wes Welker is in the same eliteness as Dez Bryant?
When you look at them, I'd have to say they're probably identical.
Yeah, I'm not talking about what they look like. Oh, Torrey Krug, goal. Go Bees. All right. Anyway, here's an interesting one. Rest of season: Alshon Jeffrey, Mike Wallace. Jeremy, who's your boy?
Alshon. I don't like Mike Wallace at all. I hate
What?
I just don't like the Dolphins. I'm biased. I hate everything about Mike Wallace and the Dolphins. So
I mean, you don't like that he's scored double-digit points every single week this year?
I don't even think I knew he did that. I hate Mike Wallace. I hate the Dolphins. I hate Ryan Tannehill. I'm biased. I like Alshon. He could have been a Jet, but they took Stephen Hill too. That's a thing. The Jets. So.
Well, I would hope that you know that Mike Wallace is basically like a top 15 receiver, and he's had a bye week, so that really means he's been like a wide receiver 1. So if it's me, I think I would, looking at their schedules, I think I'd go with Mike Wallace. Wilson?
That's tough. I think it's a good one. I think for upside purposes, I'd go Alshon. But I don't think you can go wrong with either. I think Wallace might be a little safer.
Wallace already has bye. Alshon hasn't, so I don't know. Maybe that's something too. Let's see here. Is Marty L back?
Yeah.
Marty L,
Back.
we're going to go fire round here. You ready?
Go for it.
And then we're going to go last words.
All right.
So we're going to go wide receivers first. Would you rather have rest of season in our league half-point PPR, Antonio Brown or Demaryius Thomas?
Marius Thomas.
Randall Cobb or Dez Bryant?
That's Bryant.
Alshon Jeffrey or Mike Wallace?
Alshon Jeffrey.
DeMarco Murray or Matt Forte?
Marco Murray.
Why?
Because he's on ups and downs.
That's the only reason why?
I mean, that's largely why, but yeah, I mean, just in general,
Are you interested in making a board bet on that?
Yeah, I mind. $5.
$5 rest of the season starting next week.
Yep.
I got Forte, you got Murray. That's the easiest $5 I've made. Thanks. All right, Forte, Le'Veon Bell.
Forte.
Okay. Giovanni Bernard or Marshawn Lynch?
Bernard.
All right, Shane Vereen or Alfred Morris?
Green, because he actually catches passes.
All right. That wraps up the Would You Rather rounds, and now we will go to everybody for a final word. Jeremy, why don't you go first?
All right, I'm playing Marty this week in our ESPN league, and my team is significantly better than his, and I should destroy him.
All right, Marty L.
I agree. He will destroy me. But just in general, Kansas City Royals in 6.
Yes, Jeremy, what's your prediction?
Royals in 5. Also,
All right.
Wilson got disconnected.
He's disconnected right now?
Yeah.
Text him real quick and find out what his World Series pick. I'll stall while we get his pick.
Okay.
Back.
He's back? All right, Wilson, what's your final word on fantasy football, and what's your World Series pick?
First of all, World Series pick. Royals in 4. Complete the postseason sweep. Let's do it. And as for fantasy football, right now, I possibly have the most loaded possible team in a dynasty format, and I'm 3-4. Luck, not Andrew Luck, but luck is not on my side. It's been a terrible year.
How many boxes of tissues do you think you'll need to get over it?
Roughly 37.
Okay. All right, my final parting word is AJ Green, please come back next week. I need you. And also, I need Josh Gordon, so make sure you're being good, selling cars, and that's it. My prediction for the World Series is the Giants in 7 because the Kansas City Royals are too good of a story, and they're not good enough, and the city isn't into it enough, and I just think the Giants are going to crush them. So, not crush them. I think the Royals are pesky, but the Giants are going to take it down. All right. Anyways, signing off. Martial, can we get a sign off with some music and then maybe a zoom onto something else in your cool new apartment house?
Well, pick me up where golden hand sail on the tail you run.
Yep.
Becky.
Hi, Becky.
How will